I can solve multiplicative comparison word problems by applying the area and perimeter formulas. So let's start with a review. Write the following numbers in standard form. So go ahead, pause, write the numbers in standard form, and then play when you are ready to move on. Okay, a rectangle is 1 inch wide. It is 3 times as long as it is wide. Can you draw it? Pause, draw the rectangle, how you think it would be, and then push play when you're ready to continue. So this is my rectangle that I made. If you notice, it's 1 inch wide, so it is 3 times as long as it is wide. So if I have 1 times 3, then it would look like this. It'd be 3 squares. What is the area of this shape? Well, first of all, let's combine all 3 boxes. How many inches are all 3 boxes? Okay, combined they're 3 inches. So that means we have a length of 1 inch, or actually I guess they call that the width, so we'll call it the width. We have a width of 1 inch, we have a length of 3 inches. So how do you find area? What do you do to find area? Okay, area is the length times the width. So one side is 3, the other side is 1, so 3 times 1 is 3. 3 what? What kind of label do we put on that? 3 inches squared. Okay, now we look at the perimeter. How do you find perimeter? To find the perimeter, you add all sides, or you can say one side times 2 and the other side times 2. So if I had 1 times 2, because I have a width of 1 inch, so 1 times 2 is 2, plus the length, well, the length is 3, so 3 times 2 is 6, so 2 plus 6 is 8, so the perimeter is 8 inches. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Now we're going to make the shape 2 times as long. So if you think about it, we already have 3 squares, and now we're going to double it. Well, to double it, you have to make 3 more squares. If you think about that, if it's 2 times as long, how many squares do we end up with? We end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Isn't 2 times 3 6? So if you have a number 2 times as long or twice as long, if I have a shape that's twice as long, then I can multiply by 2 to find out what that one side equals. So we just talked about that one side is 6 inches, and we still have a width of 1 inch. Now if I look at it, I could actually say that the length is 6 times the width. Okay, because now we have the width is 1 inch and the length is 6 inches. So what is the area? What is the area? How do I find the area again? Okay, so 6 times 1 is 6 inches squared. Don't forget to put the squared in your label. Now let's look at perimeter. What's the width? The width is 1 inch. So if I multiply that by 2, I have 1 times 2 is 2, plus the length, 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12. So 2 plus 12 is 14 inches. Now remember, for perimeter, you can add all sides, or you can add the length and the width and then multiply that times 2, or you can multiply each side times, just the length times 2 plus the width times 2. Now let's make it 3 times as long. 3 times as long is the same as 3 times 3 inches. Okay, because I have 3, 3, 3. And now, if you look at it, I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have the total amount of 9 squares. So 3 times 3 is 9. Let's go ahead and label our one side that we now know is 9 inches. Find the area. 9 times 1 is 9. What's my label going to be? 9 inches squared. What's the perimeter? Well, let's try it differently this time. Let's say 1 is our width, 1, plus our length, 9, times 2. So 9 plus 1 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. So the perimeter is 20 inches. How would you describe the shaded boxes? Look at the boxes. How would you describe them? Based on what we said. Now, if I look at the first row, I could say that the first row is 3 times as long as the width of the first row. But we're going to look at this whole, or not 3 times. It's actually 9 times. So, how would we describe it now, looking at it the way it is now? Go ahead and pause and talk about this with your teacher. Okay, so this rectangle is 3 inches wide and 3 times as long as it is wide. So we have the width is 3. 3 times as long as it is wide would be 9 across, because 3 times 3 is 9. So go ahead and draw this. A rectangle is 2 meters wide. It is 3 times as long as it is wide. Use the workspace and draw to find its length. So it is 3 times as long as it is wide. Go ahead and pause and draw the rectangle in your workspace. Okay, so here's what mine looks like, because it's 2 meters wide, so we have our 2 meters, and then 3 times. 2 meters happens, how many times? It happens 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. So 2 meters times 3, or you could add it, but this is 4th grade, so you should be able to multiply 2 times 3, because 2 meters happens 3 times, equals 6. So what would the area be? There would be 6 times 2, which would be 12 meters squared. Okay, and let's look at the perimeter. We can do this. Let's solve this using our third possible formula for perimeter. We could say 2 plus 6 plus 2 plus 6 equals 8 plus 8 equals 16 meters. Okay. So now we have Christine. Christine painted a mural with an area of 18 square meters and a length of 6 meters. What is the width of her mural? her next mural will be the same length as the first, but 4 times as wide. What is the perimeter of her next mural? Now, that is a lot of information, but you can easily solve this. The way you easily solve it is you pull out the first problem that you need to work through. So, if you look at the next slide, that's what I did. I pulled out the first problem. Christine painted a mural with an area of 18 square meters and a length of 6 meters. What is the width of her mural? Well, we know that area is length times width. So we have the area, but we only know one side. And in most cases, when you're talking about operations in math, if I multiply to get an answer, what would the opposite be? What would I do to find out what one of the sides is? If I multiplied to get the answer, what's the operation I'd have to do to find out what the answer is? Okay, I would have to divide. So you'd say 18 divided by the side that we do know. 18 divided by 6 is, what is it? 3 meters. Okay, so now we know that one side is 3 meters. The other side is 6 meters. Now let's look at the next question that the problem asks us. It says her next mural will be the same length as the first, but 4 times as wide. What is the perimeter of her next mural? It's 4 times as wide. That means that one side of 3, the length of 3 meters is going to happen how many times? How many times is that going to happen? 3 meters is going to happen 4 times. So, if you look at the next slide, we have the formula for perimeter, and go ahead and find out what the perimeter of her second mural is. So we have 6 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, or we could say the total of that one side is 12. Okay. Sherry's rectangular garden is 8 square meters. The longer side of the garden is 4 meters. Nancy's garden is twice as long and twice as wide as Sherry's rectangular garden. Try it out on the next slide. Highlight important information, draw to solve, and then solve. So, go ahead, here's your workspace. Pause, and go ahead and try it out. So let's look at this together. Sherry's rectangular garden is 8 square meters. The longer side of the garden is 4 meters. That's really strange. I don't see like a question, so I'm assuming that we're finding area and perimeter. The longer side of the garden is 4 meters. So I have 8 square meters, 4 meters. What is the missing side? Remember, what times what equals 8, or 8 divided by 4 equals 2. Now, we already have the area. We know that the area is 8 meters squared. The perimeter, though, is 4 plus 2, which is 6, times 2, which would be 12 meters. Now, Nancy's garden is twice as long and twice as wide. So not only do we have 4 meters now on the width, it's twice as wide. So we have 4 and 4. And twice as long as 2 and 2. So if you notice now we have the length is doubled and the width is doubled. So let's figure out what that one side would be. The one side, the width would be 8, and the length would be 4. And don't forget to put your labels so that you know what you're dealing with. We're dealing with meters. So the area, if it's twice as long and twice as wide, would be 8 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32 meters squared. Okay, and the perimeter would be 8 times 4, which is 12. 12 times 2 is 24 meters squared. So if Sherry's neighbor had a garden 3 times as long and 3 times as wide as her garden, what would be the relationship of the perimeter between those gardens? What can I do besides adding everything up? Go ahead and pause and discuss this. Okay, if you look, now we have a chart. Sherry's neighbor had a garden 3 times as long and 3 times as wide as her garden. What would be the relationship of the perimeter between those gardens? What do you notice about this chart? What's the pattern in perimeter? What's a pattern in area? If you notice that the perimeter, if you look at our original length, it's 2. If you look at Sherry in the first, from Sherry to Nancy, you multiply by 2. So what do you think you're going to multiply by to get the neighbors? You're going to multiply by 2 because 2 is the length of our original side that we're talking about. So 24 times 2 is 48 meters. An area. Well, the area, look at the width, 4 meters. What is the area increasing by? It's increasing by 4s. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 times 4. Ooh. Go ahead and pause and work through that and see if you can solve it. 32 times 4. 32 times 4 is 128 meters squared. Okay, a rectangular porch is 4 feet wide. It is 3 times as long as it is wide. Label a diagram with the dimensions of the porch. Well, 4 feet wide, so we know it's 4 feet. 3 times as long as it is wide. That means 4 feet happens 3 times across the top. 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet. Find the perimeter. Well, our length is 12 feet. So the perimeter would be 12 plus 4, which is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Okay, a narrow rectangular banner is 5 inches wide, so let's draw a box, 5 inches. It is 6 times as long as it is wide. Okay, so let's make that length of 6 times, 6 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that means 5 is going to happen 6 times. 5 inches, 6 times. So 5 times 6 is 30. So that length is actually 30 inches. So go ahead and see if you can solve this problem.